Hello there everyone, it's Twacer back today, and this video is going to be a breakdown and my thoughts on Star Wars The Bad Batch Episode 3, Replacements. I'll tell you right now, I really enjoyed this episode. The first 3 episodes have been amazing so far. We have 16 episodes in this season as a whole, and I'll tell you what, I am really looking forward to having this much Star Wars content for like the entirety of the summer. It is amazing. This show has been off to an amazing start. I really love what they're doing with it, and I can't wait to see where it takes us. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just talk about Episode 3. So, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so when this episode first opened up, I'll admit I was a little bit concerned. I was like, oh, brother, please tell me we're not doing this again. Like, how many times in Star Wars can we see that the main characters, their ship is damaged, they have to make a crash landing, they stay on this planet until it's fixed? Like, The Mandalorian did that a couple of times. And luckily, that was not the case. I probably would have enjoyed it either way, but luckily, that was not the case. There was a lot going on in this episode. There was 2 very drastically different storylines that they were telling simultaneously, and it worked really well. Like, I just, as a whole, loved this episode. I did really like the vibe that it was giving off when they were on, like, that, the deserted planet or whatever. I felt like we were back in Empire Strikes Back where like the Millennium Falcon flies into the Exogorth and it's being attacked by the Minox with like the respirators and everything. I'm sure that was probably a reference or something. Now, this next thing is not something that I personally caught on to when watching the episode. When Wrecker hits his head and he's kind of, not feeling great for the rest of the episode, he keeps going back and holding his head. I thought that was just him, he was injured from the hit, and that was it. But a lot of people after the fact were quick to point out that, maybe that has something to do with his inhibitor chip. A lot of people keep bringing up this image of Clone Trooper Tut when his inhibitor chip was going haywire and he was having a bunch of headaches, and let me just say, I do not personally think that Wrecker is going to fall victim to his inhibitor chip. I still think that, he just hurt his head pretty bad, although it is a little peculiar that, they kind of like focused on it as much as they did, and if that is what they're planning on doing, that would be absolutely devastating because Wrecker has recently become one of my favorite members of the Bad Batch next to Hunter, and I just really hope that that's not the case. I think they're already doing that with Crosshair, so, I mean, if that is what they're planning on doing, Dave Filoni, please rethink, please change the entire show based off of this video right now. We want Wrecker to stay a good guy. And eventually we go back to Kamino and we meet back up with Crosshair and Tarkin, and there's this new guy, Admiral Rampart, and he basically introduces us to the first batch of conscripted soldiers who have essentially signed up to work for the Empire. And they're essentially a part of this new initiative known as Project Warmantle, which was first referenced in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story as one of the top secret plans that Jyn and Cassian kind of like find as they're looking for the plans to the Death Star. And I thought this was a really cool little detail, and I loved how, they're kind of starting to flush out all these lesser known like projects that the Empire had going on. Somebody online was also quick to point out that one of the other plans that Jyn and Cassian find is labeled as Mark Omega, which could possibly be related to Omega, like the character in this show, which I feel would be interesting, but maybe a little bit too on the nose. I don't know. I'd be really interested to see where that goes, though. As mentioned earlier, there was 2 very drastically different storylines that they were telling in this episode, with Crosshair and Omega and the rest of the Bad Batch. It was the gritty war crime story, and then the wholesome happy found family story, and I loved both, but, like, Crosshair is a menace. Like, at this point, I don't, I know his inhibitor chip is controlling him, but I feel like he had a lot of those tendencies to begin with, even before that. Like, he was always just the cold, not really friendly member of the Bad Batch. But, like, holy cow, was this episode just, like, so drastically different and, like, within itself. Like, you have Crosshair, like, mercilessly killing, like, innocent civilians and, like, his own men who just doesn't want to, like, follow along with these, like, absolutely evil orders. But then you have Omega and, like, the rest of the Bad Batch, and they're chilling, and, like, Wrecker makes Omega a bed, and it's just, like, super wholesome. And that in itself is another really cool contrast between these 2 characters, because you have Omega, who finally feels welcomed, finally feels loved, she has found a family, Wrecker makes her that bed, and that really was just one of the most wholesome moments of, like, ever, like, in all of Star Wars. That was amazing. But, like, the Bad Batch, they all look out and they all care for her, and then you have Crosshair, who, after executing all the civilians, goes back to the former Bad Batch barracks, but he's all alone. He's surrounded by strangers, he looks down at the ground, and he's completely alone in that moment. And I really like how this episode is titled Replacements, because it's not just referencing the conscripted soldiers replacing the clones, but they're also replacing his family, like his squad. Like, Crosshair is just completely alone now. And just while we're still on the topic of Crosshair, I do want to go back to the moment where they were confronting the civilians, and one of the troopers that was conscripted, decided not to go along with it because he knew that what they were doing was not right. And, unfortunately, Crosshair executes him right there on the spot for not following orders. And that's one of the things that I appreciate most about this series so far. They're showing us how easy it was for the Empire to take hold from the very beginning. Like, these conscripted soldiers did not want to be an execution squad, like that one dude said before he himself was executed. They literally just wanted to provide for themselves and their family, and unfortunately were just coerced into doing all of the Empire's dirty work. Now, I'm not saying that because they were forced, all of these conscripted soldiers were still good people, because they still ultimately made the decision to follow the Empire's orders, but it's a really tough decision to make, when the Empire is literally threatening you with your own life. And that's essentially the Empire's entire motto, rule by fear, and they've been doing this from the very beginning. Alright guys, well that's probably going to do it for this video. I really did enjoy this episode. Both of the storylines that they were telling with Crosshair, Omega, and the rest of the Bad Batch, it was great. There was a lot of wholesomeness and a lot of grittiness as well. Let me know what you guys think. I'd probably give this episode another 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Like, it was a really good episode, and I really can't wait to see the rest of this show. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, definitely stay tuned for more Star Wars content. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate that. Leave a like, drop a comment. Definitely check me out on TikTok and Twitch as well. And until the next video, guys, thank you so much. May the Force be with you all, always.